Prepare to have knowledge bestowed upon you. Here comes the #1 podcast for Dynasty Fantasy Football, half PPR 10 and 12 man leagues. The Fantasy Podfathers. Shaved. I did the shave this week. Yesterday,
Ooh,
actually.
Nice.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping to have the camera working because I did the friendly mutton chops.
Yeah.
You know what that
Yeah.
consists of, where the chops and then they meet in the middle, like they're shaking hands below your nose. So I showed my wife yesterday, and she said, "Did you do that for the podcast?" And that's when I realized she has no idea how a podcast works. Like, yep, shaved the beard for the audio format. Yes.
So she's not one who you have to worry about listening to the podcast so much.
No, that's not. I don't think it's going to be a concern. She's going to tune in to see my mustache. Like, oh my God. Are we ready to roll?
You take a sip of water.
Damn.
Clear the phlegm out the throat. All right. Well, on that note, let's kick her off, huh?
Yeah. Van Gundy.
Hey, y'all. Y'all.
Ha! Van Gundy. All right. That phlegm is just going to hang in there the whole episode again. Damn it with a stick. All right. Welcome to the Fantasy Podfathers, the podcast dedicated to 10 and 12 man dynasty football using half PPR as our scoring format. And as always, no kickers. Well, this is the part where I usually ask you how your week went, but that question doesn't really work for two reasons. You don't really have games, and the games that are going aren't really finished.
Yeah, it's Tuesday, and we're watching football while we record, per usual. We're on this nice run of 8 out of 10 days we have football.
Oh, I know. Don't you love the Tuesday night doubleheader like we always have?
I love it.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things where it's hard to justify it to your spouse on these weeks.
Well, it's just weird now. It's like, I really don't like it. It's not good for my stress. Like, I don't feel like I'm getting good sleep. I want some finality here. I'm very much up in the air, as you know.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, it's been kind of fun watching my week, and I'll catch up on your games. I know where one of them sits. I lost last night in the one league I played in. Put up a lot of good points, but came up 4 points short. Went into the game with Delvin Cook head-to-head with David Montgomery. What made it even better for me was the game was going on while I was sitting at a high school orchestra concert, which is double painful. You've never experienced a loss to atonal jingle bells. It's a sweet, painful moment.
Well, let me just say I've taken some big losses during 3.5-hour dance recitals where I'm only able to sneak updates between acts and I can't yell fuck. So I've felt your pain. Second 10-man Big Ten Dynasty Football. A 10-man full PPR dynasty with a practice squad. I actually just took a lead in the game because he had Tyler Higbee in at tight end. That one should be locked up. I've got one right now where I'm holding a lead, but if Rashad Penny puts up a huge night, I could still lose this. It's like 74-55 right now.
Well, you're probably okay.
Well, then, as of course, the Nasty is my closest game, where I'm just trying to eke out a win, hoping that I can pull the old wide receiver siphons off all the quarterback points. If Metcalf can do that for me with Wilson, I think I can pull this one out too. I have potential to win all three in very thrilling fashion.
Yeah. You win went into that game up 9 points, and currently with 9 minutes left in the third quarter, you're up 9 points.
I've been telling people I'm a Jedi for a long time.
Sizzling hot takes.
But I just got to say, this week, I pulled it. The guy had Thielen in his lineup and got pinched. Didn't get the swap out in time. That's in my 12-man. So I'm going to wind up winning that one. My second 10-man, he got bit with Higbee. That league has daily waivers. So by the time Higbee was called out, he didn't have time to put in a waiver claim that would clear. So he had no hope. And I just had like a full 24 hours to soak that one in, knowing I needed 3 points out of Metcalf. And then this thing, I had guys going for and against in every league. It was very tense, but I managed it just right. And I'm going to pull them all three out. And I think that is my closing statement on my thesis that I am a Jedi.
Well, very, very well done. The way it stands, if you do win in the Nasty.
The Nasty, a 10-man half PPR dynasty featuring practice squad.
We will not play each other unless we both make it to the championship. So
that would be great for the pod, wouldn't it?
It certainly would. One of us would be so bitter. The other one would be so joyous. Let's talk about the grossness of this week, because it was pretty gross, I gotta say. Like scoring wise, just my goodness. Like it's gross. Just to give you an idea of like how gross it was, the number one quarterback was Tyler Huntley, backup quarterback for the Ravens. And the number one running back was Duke Johnson.
Yeah.
Travis Kelce, which is obvious at tight end. He finally showed up. And then you had Tyreek Hill. So the Chiefs both showed up pretty well. But then they did what we'll be talking about during this podcast. They're like, hey, let's all go out and celebrate. And now they're both on the COVID list. So not sure if you'll even have them next week. So what do we do here when you've got these stars that all of a sudden go on COVID? Now, you're talking about Higbee hurt the fellow you're playing against. It cost him a win in a playoff game.
I was down 3 with Higbee versus Metcalf. I don't like my odds if I'm him, but I have a chance. I went to 0. And like I said, 24-hour waiver claim, he sat there hands tied.
We should talk about this strategy because it's going to come up. And I think where we can start this is just talking about this idea of we'll take it from the Nasty standpoint. We start 3 wide receivers in that league. If you got 3 and you feel good about them, you better have 4, and you better have your eye on number 5 possibly.
Right.
The way this is going, we could be getting multiple players the morning of or the day before with COVID.
Yeah. And depending on how your waivers are set up, that you may or may not be able to do something about it.
Right. Yeah, that's brutal. I have not yet been bit by COVID too bad. I had a Devontae Adams thing that happened to me.
I've actually had the opposite experience. Every time I've been in a position where I've had to make a tough call, bringing a guy back from IR, somebody was going to have to get cut. It was like, boop, okay, that guy's on COVID. I'm going to swap him out, and it's going to save me making a very, very difficult decision. One that we've got a segment that helps you deal with that exact thing. If you got guys, and especially right now with this whole COVID mess happening, you might have to make a decision, very short notice, pull the trigger, snap decision. And that's when long or gone is going to come in handy.
Long or gone.
And I've got to make some of these decisions this week. So let's talk about some of those guys you might have on your roster. Again, we take this from a dynasty standpoint. So the first guy we're going to name at the quarterback position might be like, well, of course he's gone. Which, yes, of course he's gone in a redraft league. But from a dynasty standpoint, it's not so easy, especially if you're playing in a 12-man league. So let's take the quarterback formerly known as Danny Dimes, and I think we should probably call him maybe Danny Nichols now or something. He hasn't dropped dimes in quite a while. Let's put a scenario out there for the people, and I'll use the situation that I'm in. I have Chris Godwin. Was really counting on him to help me in the playoffs next week. Of course, he tears his ACL. He's out for the year. I have Daniel Jones on my bench, and I really need a wide receiver to replace him. Can you cut Daniel Jones? Do you feel okay with it?
I've got a little bit of stock in him in 12-man. Yeah, he's one of those restricted free agents. He didn't come up in the show last week because he's not clearly going to be on the market. But that little bit of uncertainty adds some flux to it. Mm-hmm. Is he going to be in New York? Is he going to be somewhere else? Is anywhere else going to improve his stock? Does he get a starting gig? A lot of question marks. All that being said, the age, I'm going to hang on to him long term. I'm going to at least see how next year shakes out. He's got a lot of physical talent. He's underrated as a runner. So I'm willing to gamble. I can throw him on IR. I'll cut some, 28-year-old running back I was trying to hang on to.
I don't believe he's a giant. I do wonder next year if a team gives him a chance to be their starter or not. It kind of has that feel of like what Carolina did with Sam Darnold last year, that Daniel
Right.
Jones could fall where a team's like, well, we really need some other pieces to build around. It's not just a quarterback we're missing, so maybe why not? We'll give this guy a shot. I'd try to hold on to him if I could, but if I really, really can't, and we're talking playoffs right now, I would think he might be a guy that I could cut and then put on my don't forget about this guy in early season next year and see if I couldn't bring him back on my roster.
He becomes a lottery ticket, and that's sometimes those are fun to hang on to through the off season.
Yep. We're both saying long. If you really have an empty hole and it's the playoffs, of course you can't just be like, I'm not gonna get a guy because I want to keep Daniel Jones.
Yeah, and this is kind of more from a 10-man perspective, where the rosters are going to be a little bit tighter. Just from the age standpoint, give it a go.
Yep. Well, let's move on to the running back position here. I've got a guy that he's on my roster, and I do need to make this decision. It's a hard decision to make, but how do you feel about Myles Gaskin?
Well, it seems like he's got some relevance the last few weeks.
Right. Well, let me give you his. Would you like his total the last few weeks?
Oh, yeah.
He had 17 points. He had 18 points. He had 5 points, and he had 5 points.
Okay.
It is really hard to tell with a guy like Myles Gaskin because that Dolphins offensive line is so bad, right? But here's my big concern about Myles Gaskin. We've been saying that all year that like Myles Gaskin's maybe the offensive line is so horrible they can't ever get the running game going. Except, look what Duke Johnson just did.
Yeah, that doesn't speak well.
So it was against the Jets, but Myles Gaskin was active. And so if a team has Myles Gaskins active, Gaskins had 10 carries for 54 yards. It's a pretty good line, but Duke Johnson out-carried and outperformed him easily in that game, which is that's a tough one. I'm going to wait for you to give me your opinion on this before I decide.
He's got a feel of James Robinson, like a guy that's came in, kind of overperformed, been an all right fantasy player, and is just waiting to have his job taken by a free agent or a rookie.
He plays New Orleans next week, so you wouldn't dare start him there. And then in the final game, he plays Tennessee. So really, we're talking next year. Is Myles Gaskin going to be a starter anywhere next year?
Well, this could be one of those emergency situations, too, where you lose a guy and you, like, I don't know that that's depth you can give up right now, but that's going to be like a roster-specific thing. I think you got to hang on to him just for the depth
Yeah, I guess you got to go long here with this guy too.
Long.
Well, this so far has not helped me. Okay, we've got a guy here by the name of Brian Edwards out of Las Vegas. He's 23 years old. He's 6'3". There's a lot of hype on him. When he got drafted, he came in the Henry Ruggs draft, where Ruggs was clearly the early pick, and then Edwards went a few rounds later. He hasn't performed when he's been given the shot. I think he's got 3 touchdowns, 500 yards on the season, but he'll be going into his third season next year. What do you think, Brian Edwards, in a dynasty? Do you think you can cut bait at this point, or do you got to wait one more year on him?
Well, if you're making a championship run, otherwise, if you're out, then ditch Gaskin and hang on to the young wide receiver.
I mean, with Ruggs going out and Brian Edwards has had every chance to prove that he can be the guy. He's almost so far this season proved that he can't be the guy. It's just the age, the only thing that keeps him for me. So, yeah.
This is another one of those situations, though, almost like Daniel Jones, only where not the player in flux, but the team is completely in flux. And what's going to happen there, head coaching on down the line. If you're eliminated, stash him. He's another lottery ticket and see what you get.
Yep. Last guy we have on our list, tight end out of Seattle, Gerald Everett, or Jerry, as I like to call him.
You guys is tight?
Oh, we're so tight. We do the same Pilates class together. Yeah. Hey, Jerry, that abs looking tight this week.
Yeah, how's that core coming, buddy?
Yeah, been doing some bun tightening. I see. It's impressive. He's the tight end for the Seahawks. He's like one of those fringe guys where the tight end position is so terrible this year that it's hard to let a guy go. He's 27 years old. Bring up his biggest game of the year here. Just kind of see.
You got the measurables on him handy?
He's 6'3", 240. Season to date, he's got 36 catches, 294 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
So it sounds like you're describing Evan Ingram to me.
Yeah. He's had 2 games over 10 points this year. He's got 3 touchdowns. So I think if I really needed someone, I could be gone with Gerald Everett, because I'm not going to probably want to start him in the playoffs. And you can almost just throw a dart at the tight end position and get that production randomly off the waiver wire if you really needed it.
I was into Everett back in the day. I drafted Higbee initially, had him on my practice squad, and he was losing a lot of touches to Everett. All of this was like 3 years ago. Interest that I had in Everett has kind of dissipated over that 3 years. You nailed it. You can get that production off the wire. If you had to cut any of those 4 guys, I would cut him any format, 10-man, 12-man, half and full PPR. That's your guy. Biggity bang, dump him.
Gone.
I agree.
Deposit him in the nearest bin.
I like to throw you off on these, and I like to throw in bonus player.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, I don't want you to be all prepped for this.
Oh.
Consider it your pop quiz.
All right, let's do it.
Here's the one. I did allude to this a little bit earlier when we talked on the phone, but Chris Carson. Here's my situation. I don't have a guy on my bench that I feel like I can cut in my dynasty. On my IR spots, I have Chris Carson and Derrick Henry. And I'm currently carrying 3 defenses in that league as well.
Wow.
Well, actually, let's go through that scenario, because some teams might be facing this right now. Okay.
Yeah, because I think you could get that down to 2. You only got 2 weeks left.
That's true.
You really only need 2 matchups.
So help me make this decision, because I'm struggling on which one of these ones I like more. Okay. So I've had Buffalo all year. Next week they play at New England, and I'm not going to play Buffalo there.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Right? For the championship, if I make it, they play Atlanta. Keep in Buffalo for that one. Would you rather play the Dolphins defense at New Orleans, next week, or would you play Kansas City at home versus Pittsburgh next week?
Both of those defenses have been really hot. So before you even finished, I was going to say play Miami, and then you said Kansas City. Man, that's got potential. I don't know. I could see the Steelers getting a little sneaky, and yeah, New Orleans is kind of a dumpster fire.
That's the debate that I can't figure out yet. I'm literally sitting here like looking at this, and I've had both these defenses for a while. And the other thing I'm thinking right now is like, well, we talked about it. Even though this is not an individual player, do I like Kansas City's defense if they don't have Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce on the other side?
Like, are they going to get worn out? And
a lot of debate there. So I can make that decision, and because of this Tuesday Night Football, I have one more day to make this decision.
Yeah, the waiver's not clear until Thursday now. Yep. It's really effing with me.
I can second guess myself for a whole 24 more hours. So if I can't make the decision, then I'm in a spot right now where I could potentially take Chris Godwin, put him on IR, and bring Chris Carson off and consider cutting Chris Carson.
How old is he?
I believe he's going to be 29 next year.
Oof, and a neck fusion?
Yeah. I mean, fusion can sound good or bad because, it sounds cool. Okay. Jazz fusion's kind of cool, but neck fusion's kind of lame.
I don't know. I honestly put those two neck and neck.
I honestly, after I said it, I realized jazz fusion might be more painful. Play this game with me, if you will, because we've got some time this week. I'm gonna give you my options of players to cut to replace Chris Godwin's production. Okay.
All right.
Can I cut Rashad Penny?
No.
Absolutely not. Can I cut Donta Foreman?
I don't think he can right now.
No. He got 22 carries and 108 yards last week.
Yeah. No.
Can I cut Cortland Sutton?
I don't think you can yet.
No. Now, in a redraft league, you should have cut him about 8 or 9 weeks ago.
Right.
But
in a 10-man dynasty, there's still, like I said, that magical word potential. It's still there. It wears off after about 3-4 years, but he's still got a little bit of that magic dust on him.
I truly believe that there's just such good talent. It's the quarterback and the offensive coordinator. Okay, I have Tony Pollard. I cannot cut Tony Pollard. I have Dak Prescott. I can't cut Dak Prescott.
Oh, sir.
I have Michael Pittman Jr. I cannot cut Michael Pittman. Oh. I have Noah Fant. Can't cut Noah Fant. And then I have one of my favorite stashes, a player on our short, long, and gone from a few weeks back, Khalil Herbert. And I'm holding on to Khalil.
I would say yes.
So really, I look at it. I either cut Chris Carson or I make a decision on one of these defenses by tonight and make the call. I think I got to go defense. I think Carson's 28 next year because I mean he's going to have one less vertebrae to break.
That's true,
right? Just like a super powerful vertebrae now, really.
Yeah, it's like getting new part put in your car. It's like now it should be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this is an upgraded vertebrae.
Well, there's a full short, long, and gone roster for you. I don't know what kind of fuel you're putting in the jet this week, but hopefully it's not too watered down and not running properly like the players we're about to cover here. This is like a cheap flight this week, I guess.
Yeah, this is the plane that goes.
Yeah, right.
We ain't got peanuts.
Right. Yeah, there's no overhead luggage in this plane at all.
Right, you're probably sitting on your fucking suitcase.
Right. Where they just hand everyone an anti-anxiety pill just before takeoff, just because.
Right. I hope you blazed up before takeoff because your driver smells like bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
We're about to depart.
Ladies and gentlemen, buckle your seatbelts. We're about to go around the world.
We, of course, are talking about players that have been placed on the injured reserve list.
Damn.
Some of these guys are starters, and so we're just going to mention everyone's name like we did the free agents. Let's just go down each player, and we'll start the quarterback position. We'll start off with Sam Darnold in Carolina.
I'll say exactly what I said when we ran over him before. Even though he's younger than you would think, I've done seen it. And no, I'm good there.
Me too. I don't care where he goes. I'll tell you this, he's not the starter wherever he goes.
No, I think we've moved into backup territory. He's a guy that's had starting experience. The exact kind of guy teams look for to put in the backup position.
Yep, I agree. Joshua Dobbs from Pittsburgh, he's not a starter.
No, I do like him as a competent backup, but fantasy-wise, I have no interest.
Right. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he'll be 40 next year, and he's on IR with a hip injury. Just feels like such an old person injury to begin with. NFL quarterbacks can't wear life alert necklaces. Then here's a player we've covered already tonight. Daniel Jones is on IR with a neck issue.
Yeah, I'm hanging on to him with his age. He's still, like I said, he's still covered in a little bit of that magic dust of potential.
There's a player by the name of A.J. McCarron for Atlanta you're not going to be interested in. And then a player I've legit never heard of before, which is rare. I've never heard of Nathan Stanley from Minnesota.
Wow, you got me with that one as well.
Here's my favorite thing on my list of reasons why he's on IR. It says undisclosed.
Man, that's so wide open to interpretation.
He's
so
piqued by interest.
We
have to dive. Let's take a deeper dive.
What happened to this
Stanley.
fucking guy?
Nathan Stanley.
Undisclosed generally leads me to think it's something related to the testicles.
Yeah, like he's got a bad case of
the old K2.
Yeah, good lord.
Yeah.
The old grapefruit balls. He's really, I cannot find.
It ain't disclosed, man.
It just says he was waived.
Government doesn't want you to know why he's on IR, man. It's conspiracy. Fucking Bilderbergs.
Number 9.
Let's speculate. Let's
reckless speculation. I love it. Let's do it.
I'm gonna go for a case of tender nipple. That his shoulder pads have just rubbed his nipples raw. And he's just got a bad case of tender nipple.
I told you, I think it's a case of gigantically swollen balls, and it's a situation where it's just too embarrassing, and the team is like, you know what? Let's just write undisclosed there. We don't have to tell everybody that your giant swollen balls are why you can't play football.
We have Jameis Winston. It's also a free agent quarterback. We've touched on him earlier, previous episodes. What's interesting is we was in Tampa Bay. He put up so many fantasy points because he threw for so many yards and so many touchdowns that his interceptions didn't really matter. And then he went to New Orleans and he threw for so little yards that he had to have touchdowns, but he didn't really throw any interceptions. Right. So if you bring in Jameis Winston and you split the difference, he's a Teddy Bridgewater level quarterback.
Well, and I think we mentioned it a couple of years ago, but and maybe now the kind of time frame, the magic time wheel has lined up. I think the comp for him is Ben.
Yeah.
He's big. He's got a big arm. He wasn't afraid to throw downfield, making a mistake. You know, he would go back out and go right back to it. I think he would be a really comparable fit in Pittsburgh. I wouldn't be mad if my team signed him. But fantasy-wise, no.
Yeah. I guess that's the benefit of having the IR spot is you get all off season. Like in our league, we do our draft right after the NFL draft. So we'll know where Winston's going to be, and we'll know if a rookie quarterback has been drafted for that team. So Winston as a starter, let's say he goes to Pittsburgh next year. I probably want to figure out a way to keep him on my roster just to see him play a little bit. So that actually concludes our quarterbacks on IR segment. We're going to move into the running backs. It's a longer list, but probably similar, not a ton of names that we have to think about too much. So let's start this list. Giovanni Bernard. I don't think you feel good about starting him this year. He's not on my roster anywhere.
No, he's a good, serviceable, real-life back,
Yep.
but fantasy-wise, too hit and miss. No, I probably can't even justify using an IR spot on him right now.
No. Malcolm Brown. He's just too old to been everywhere sort of guy for me. I'm not putting him on my roster.
No real interest in wasting an IR spot.
I'm going to skip some names here because if I've really heard them.
Yeah, please do.
Chris Carson. We've discussed him. 27. You know,
if you can stash him, I would say stash him.
Here's a big name. J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Literally tore his ACL week 1 of preseason. He should be back and ready to go by next year. And clearly, unless they want to bring another running back out of retirement, he's going to be the guy.
Well, I think Frank Gore is done with the boxing now, so he may be available for 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
Yeah, that about sums up his boxing career. Kenyon Drake, he was, I believe, 28 or 29 going into that injury, so
yeah,
he's.
I haven't had any real interest in him in about 3 years.
Yeah, same.
It was minimal at the time. Not burning IR spot on him.
No. Gus Edwards.
That's more interesting.
Did Edwards? They both have ACLs, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a huge name. Travis Etienne. I can't say his name. I know he's on the list.
You know what? You just made the list.
That is a really interesting guy to me. Of course, you're going to hold on to him. Of course, you got to see what he does. But I question the pick when it was made in the first place.
Well, and it's Urban Meyer there.
Right.
And I did not realize they were starting to convert him to wide receiver.
Mm-hmm. Of course they did.
Yeah, because they were planning on taking a wide receiver there, and apparently when Tony was gone, they didn't have a plan B, so they just took him, and then Urban Meyer's genius plan was going to be to turn him into a wideout since they wanted one, and when they wanted wasn't there.
Yeah, so why not just draft the guy that you want to convert in the first round? That seems like a solid, smart move.
That's the move of a guy who would not be employed in a few months.
I will say it's Urban Meyer's best draft ever, though. Next guy on this list is a guy named Darrington Evans. He's the third down running back for the Titans. I feel like, backed up Derrick Henry, he had value. I think this year they've probably discovered a different backup for him. I would probably let him walk. And the next guy on the list is Derrick Henry, which
that's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Justice Hill from Baltimore tore his Achilles. No.
No, he only really had value because of the 2 previous injuries before him that would have given him playing time that he would not normally have had. And even if he recovers to 100%, there's no touches there.
Yeah. As advanced as modern medicine has become, the Achilles. Yeah. The Achilles injury for a running back is not a good. We've got Jerick McKinnon on this list. I think that's who cares? I hate to say it. He had a lot of potential. Raheem Mostert, we've talked a lot about. He's going to be 30. And he's so often injured.
Oh, yeah. He's, shown some breakaway speed when he's healthy, but that is so seldom.
Mm-hmm. Right now we have Trey Sermon on the IR. I did surprisingly read today that he's actually that they took him off the IR. He could return, which would be interesting. He's a huge question mark. We've covered him on the show before. Yeah, of course you got to hold on to Trey Sermon, and I hate to say it, but Rashad Penny, Trey Sermon. I hope they don't. I hope he doesn't have the same fate that it takes him year 4 to get the opportunity and finally starts to do something. But I will hold on to Trey Sermon until I absolutely can't hold on to Trey Sermon.
Agreed. I've got, I believe, 50% stock in him as well. One of those things where when you're drafting, sometimes you don't get your preferred guy, and sometimes that's good because I was really preferring him over Carter, and man, that's oof, yeah. But I'm gonna hang on to him until the bitter damn end.
Yep. We're about to go into the tight ends, but I want to give the listeners a update and yourself an update on the situation here in your fantasy matchup. It is you're winning still by 9.
Not only in the nasty, but as I bounce over to Big 12, it's looking like I'm holding an 18-point lead. That's looking pretty good. And over in Big 10 Dynasty football, well, Higbee didn't play, and it's a damn good thing he did because in a full PPR, I only won by 4.8.
Dang.
Yeah.
Dang.
I think Higbee could have gotten 4.9.
Yeah. Wow.
Would that be 3 catches for 20 yards?
Barring like a last second 80-yard touchdown here from Russell Wilson.
That doesn't go to DK Metcalf because that would actually give me more points. That would increase my lead.
All right, well let's move into the tight ends here. This is kind of fun to do a podcast while watching a fantasy football playoff unfold.
Yeah, because that's totally nothing we'd ever accounted for on Tuesday.
No, it makes me feel like the week is.
But it does feel good. I've got a strong whiskey. The pilot said I could smoke whatever the fuck I want on the plane.
That's true.
I just won 3 fantasy leagues.
Nice. Solid.
With my Jedi damn powers. I made it happen. Oh, God, and a cat just jumped onto me out of fucking nowhere.
Didn't see that one coming.
I didn't. It's been and into the mic. Beautiful. Thank you, Mr. Pants. It has been a night full of surprises.
Here's our tight ends on IR. Dan Arnold. God, I liked him in Jacksonville. We've covered him before. I don't know if I like anyone in I don't know what's going to happen in Jacksonville next year.
I don't think ownership makes good decisions. No. So it's like I don't have any faith that ship gets righted and that somebody competent gets put in place.
I will say this, Trevor. The one thing we know for sure is that Trevor Lawrence is going to be there, and Trevor Lawrence definitely liked Dan Arnold. So if I could, I'd hang on to him. Just see what happens next year. But
he's got age. We're from Wisconsin, so he's a feel-good story. Everybody around here likes him. I've seen him picked up in at least 75% of my dynasties. I believe he's been cut in all of them now, but that tells you he's got wire availability. If you're eliminated from the playoffs, you don't need to be housing guys on IR for no good reason. Yeah, maybe he's a guy you take a run at, especially if you're razor thin at tight end.
Right. Eric Ebron's on IR. I don't think you care.
No, and a free agent as well.
Yeah, he's nothing special. Big name, got to have him next year. Probably a top 10 fantasy tight end. TJ Hawkinson. He's someone obviously you got to hold on to. You're gonna have to make a cut in the offseason to keep him on your roster, but you have to keep him on your roster.
Yep.
Blake Jarwin. No.
I've seen him picked up in 25% of my dynasties. Somebody doing that exact thing. He's got enough potential, I guess. I'd rather take Arnold, honestly.
Yeah. Blake Jarwin's like the name of an actor who only does Shakespeare films.
I think he's your server at Applebee's.
he could.
Hey guys, what's up? I'm Blake. I'll be your server. We got jalapeno poppers on special tonight. Freezy blender drinks,
If you guys don't mind, I'm just gonna leave the check because I've got to go. I'm doing casting for Midsummer's Night's Dream tonight.
Yeah, I gotta run. I'll let you settle up with Julie up front. I want to say thank you guys for stopping in. That's a limited fake Blake Jarwin right there.
There'll be no more Blake Jarwin coverage for at least 365 days. Irv Smith, I think he's my favorite sleeper candidate for next year at tight end. So high on that guy coming into it.
Definitely worth keeping on IR.
Yeah, for sure. Logan Thomas, we've discussed. He's just age, coming off the injury, team, all of it. Not a guy that we're interested in holding on to, although people will just remember his name for one good season, but it was one good season. Robert Tonyan, we've discussed. Neither of us are interested in a tight end from Green Bay with 2 good games on his resume at the age he's at, coming off a torn ACL. And the last one I think we wouldn't have talked about, except he had like 3 tremendous games going into this. His injury was Max Williams from Arizona.
Ertz stays. I don't think if Max stays there, it's as a backup.
Right. Well, I guess I say this, if you're going to have a Williams, you might as well have the Max Williams.
Yeah, with 2X.
Yeah, that's big. Well, then we'll move on to our last group of players here, and that's the wide receiver position. Again, I'm gonna hop through names that aren't relevant because it's a long list. First guy I see on this list is AJ Brown. Big name. I don't know how I feel about AJ Brown. He had such a big year last year. He's productive when he's on the field, but the guy seems just always to be hurt. Now, obviously, you're going to keep him, but do you trust him? We got DJ Shark. There's going to be so many changes next year on that team. Be interesting to see. I'm holding on to DJ Shark. I don't love him, but I am holding on to him because he did have a pretty tremendous season not this year, but the year before. And what's his competition there? I mean, Marvin Jones, Laviscus Chenault. Yeah, right. Randall Cobb, he's getting up there in age, and if he's not in Green Bay as a slot wide receiver, I don't care.
He's got absolutely zero value if that's not the case.
Yeah. He has to have everything fall in place for him to be a number 5 wide receiver. Corey Davis really came in a really strong preseason, started out the year looking pretty good, kind of sputtered out there, then got hurt. He would be a guy right on the edge for me of trying to keep or not. Let me ask this: Corey Davis or Chris Carson?
How old's Davis? He's got to be way younger. I think off
he's
the
26. A 26-year-old wide receiver has a lot more longer-term value than a 27-year-old running back with a fused neck.
I agree completely.
Might I also say, Ron, congratulations.
Yeah, I just Jedi'd my way to 3 fucking wins.
Yeah,
I had Montgomery going for me in one league, against me in another, facing Brady while owning Mike Evans in 2 leagues. It was absolute Jedi mastery on my part.
Let's keep going on this list. We got Will Fuller on IR. I'm done with the Will Fuller.
Oh, I was never in.
Yeah, me either. I anytime he was good, he just pulled the hammy, and then he's just always injured.
I got some rules I live by, man. I don't trust a guy in a tunic. I don't take anybody with a hyphenated name. I stay the hell out of Jacksonville, and I don't take players with numerals.
Right? Agreed. We've got KJ Hamler. He'll be the 4th wide receiver in Denver. He's a speedster with a ACL, so I'm not interested in him. Here's a guy that you've got to keep, but I'm concerned about him long term. I wouldn't trade for him. Get your opinion on how do you feel about DeAndre Hopkins?
What's he, 29? I think he's starting to reach that age where a wide receiver, they've already hit the plateau. So the next geographical feature after the plateau is the cliff.
Yeah.
And for me, I like his talent, and I would like to have him and squeeze out the last bit of juice from his career. But what he's going to cost you to get off of somebody, I'll never be able to pull the trigger on that. If I can get him dirt cheap, I'm all in. But nobody's going to give him up dirt cheap.
How many 100-yard receiving games do you think DeAndre Hopkins had this year?
This year, 2, 3?
None.
0.
0.
That's 2 or 3 less than I guessed.
Yep. His highest catch total was 7. His highest yardage was 87 on the season.
Damn. And they've really performed pretty well with or without him.
Except last week. He went on IR last week, and they got slaughtered by Detroit.
Well, that's the key. They just have to have him on the active roster. He doesn't have to play. He just can't be on IR.
It's true.
I mean, it's logic. I did my own research.
That's a team that looked very good 3 weeks ago and is very questionable right now. We've got Mohamed Sanu, which we're probably not interested in.
No, I've been interested in him in like 8 years.
Here's a player that I don't know if we'll see on the field ever again. Sterling Shepard. He tore the Achilles.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. And that's another speed guy, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I think that might be the end of. He was not really super startable anyways, and now he's doesn't have his Achilles. Juju, we've discussed him before.
I believe you called a Jedi turncoat moment going to Cleveland. Yeah,
that's right.
I want to say that he stays in Pittsburgh on a sweetheart deal, but the more I think about it, the more I think they offer him an offensive deal, and he does turn to the dark side.
I think you're right. Last guy on our list.
You're right.
I think you're right about me being right.
I agree with you thinking that I'm right about you being right.
Well, great. Everything's all right.
Well, I'll drink to that.
I believe we just pulled off in the industry what they call a Juju Smith-Schuster moment.
Yeah, the quadruple back pat.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what that's called?
I believe so.
That's a Juju Smith-Schuster.
Last name on our list is Robert Woods. I would look at fantasy football and I'd see he'd be like a top 15 player, and I'd be like, that's not true.
Hey, I still can't know. Like those are damn dirty lies.
Right.
I don't know what you did with those numbers in your fucking witchcraft, but they're not real.
Right. No, he had 6 end arounds for 93 yards in that game. Yeah, but that's not sustainable. No, he's done that 4 weeks in a row. Yeah, well, I still don't want him. He's the guy on Monday night where you go in, you're up 11, and you're like, oh, it's fine. He's got Robert Woods, and you're like, how did I lose by
because he
17? Right. You're just like, he just goes off.
Garbage time down the seam.
So of course you got to hold on to him, but if you're like myself, you don't have to hold on to him because he's just not on your list of players to own.
Yeah, I never bought into him, and now he's going to be 29 or 30 coming back off an injury. And Van Jefferson he ain't setting the world on fire, but I don't think he's ceding any touches back to Robert Woods anytime soon. And if they plan on keeping Beckham, that pretty much renders him useless.
Yep. I thought we could have a little bit of fun here to end this week. Thought it'd be kind of fitting to look at trades that happened this year. Big one that just affected your game. Okay. You just won, and the fellow that you won against kind of bet the farm on going all in and basically giving up next year's draft to try to win this game. Right?
Yeah, and I messaged you that what was it, Sunday night, and said, "Hey, we're about to see if that bet pays off right here." He mortgaged next year's draft to get his hands on David Montgomery
and T. Higgins. And let's just have some fun, and let's go in and see what that did for him. So
let's dissect this a little bit.
Those two players combined this week for him for a total of 11 points.
Ouch.
T. Higgins and David Montgomery combined for 11 points. So I kind of want to see, knowing what he's been playing all year. Now, you guys, he just lost to you by 14 points, okay? So he would have had to play Marquise Brown over T. Higgins, and that would have scored him 6 more points. And then he would have had to play Matt Breida. He gave up picks on Evan Ingram and Bolden, so knowing that he would have played. So
right.
So I guess what we're saying is it wouldn't have mattered.
Right.
Because it wouldn't have mattered, he gave up a first and a third. I don't look at David Montgomery as a giant stud going into next year. He's
definitely a viable player. Yeah.
Oh, he's a starter, but
I was worried about it.
Yeah. Well, here's an interesting fact for you. David Montgomery, he has only scored 1 touchdown since week 4.
Wow.
So you can't win on yardage alone. So, you roll the dice, you got to go for it. But I guess I'm saying too, like, his option was to start Matt Breida. Now, here's the other thing. He owns Leonard Fournette. So going into next week, he would have been totally screwed anyways.
He'd be playing Breida.
Yeah, he'd be playing Breida anyways.
That's tough.
There's actually only 4 trades during the season in this league this year.
I love this league, man.
I gave up.
I love this league.
I gave up Beckham and Tyler Higbee to get Melvin Gordon. Pretty excited about that going into the playoffs. I'd much rather have Gordon than either of those guys.
Yeah, completely.
Melvin
Gordon on the cheap, man.
Yeah, that was very cheap.
This feels really good.
I gave away Mike Gesicki and Tyson Williams early in the season.
And as much as I like Gesicki physically, I'm okay on dealing him. I mean, he's a lottery ticket. He's showing a lot of potential, but I am totally okay letting somebody else scratch that fucking ticket.
Yep. I ended up flipping Gesicki and Tyson Williams for Tyler Higbee and Miles Sanders.
Who you then turn around and traded
Actually,
Higbee?
This is kind of fun. We should go backwards on this.
We should just follow fucking Tyler Higbee and see what he's done in this league.
This is fun. I actually didn't realize this. I turned Robbie Anderson and Marquise Brown into Miles Sanders and Melvin Gordon.
Okay, that's fancy.
So I traded away Robbie Anderson and Marquise Brown for Mike Gesicki, Jamison Crowder, and Odell Beckham Jr. In September.
Nice.
In October, I traded away Gesicki and Tyson Williams for Higbee and Sanders. And in November, I traded away Beckham Jr. and Tyler Higbee for Melvin Gordon.
Nice.
So, and I don't feel bad about not owning Odell or going into next year, not owning Robbie Anderson, Marquise Brown, Odell Beckham Jr., or Tyler Higbee. I'm fine with.
No, they would just be eating up a roster spot because you couldn't cut him.
Gesicki is a guy I would not mind owning, but I need the running back. So, I sorry, that's probably not relevant to many people out there, but it was kind of fun to see some trade history in our league because
just tracking the movement and seeing what you can do with value. It's right. I honestly, and I thought about this last week, and I may Just have to see if I can do it. I turned Reggie Bush into some ridiculous shit.
Yeah.
Got him off the wire before he had that little resurgence in Miami, and I wound up trading him for a couple of guys, and I got one of those guys. I ended up flipping them. There was picks in the deal. I turned around and turned one of the picks into 2 more picks. Like, I turned Reggie Bush into like 9 people.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I got him for free off the wire because you bailed on him just a little bit early.
Yeah. Yeah. That's nuts.
Like, I think he might have even played a piece in that Peyton Manning trade.
Oh, the Peyton Manning trade.
That's a great trade. We might have to get into that in the offseason. That'd be a nice one to track.
I miss those years.
Yeah.
That was good times.
Yeah, when I trade you Gar Khan and Peyton Manning and it wins you a title.
Yeah. God, that's crazy. Garcon. I forgot about Garcon.
Pierre Garcon. Like 104 fucking receptions with the Washington racial slurs because they just fucking dump it to him at 2 yards a crack.
Man. Next week's segment, here's something I think we could look at. We have it in our league. It's the protected player list. And we have to make that decision in the off season on players. We've got a batch of players that you either got to call up or cut. So next week, let's look at the players coming off the protected list.
Yeah, let's literally run down exactly who we've got and see what you do at that point. You know, some people have a protected list, some have a practice squad. I've heard it called a taxi squad. What it comes down to is drafting a young player and having them with some sort of roster exemption, which doesn't count against you for a certain period of time. In our league, that is a 2-year protected span. Once they're brought up, they are removed from the list, no longer eligible to be roster exempt. And it leads to some interesting decisions.
Right. We'll be discussing things like, will Cam Akers heal from his injury? Will Henry Ruggs catch fire?
Too soon.